won't help record it.
Okay, we're good, Allison.
Okay, so welcome everybody to Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Executive Committee meeting. It's May 31st, 2022, and it's 9 a.m. So we're going to start our meeting. I just noticed on the header there it says 2021 on the May 31st, so we might have to change that at some point.
Yeah, I'll correct it.
Okay, and again, as everyone knows through these times, that we are recording this, and that board members, staff, guests, and members of the public are reminded that the full authority board committee meeting is being recorded and will be posted in the authority's website along with the official written minutes. As such, comments and opinions expressed may be published, and only comments expressed by individual board members, guests, and the general public are their own and do not represent the opinions or comments of the full authority or the KCCA board of directors. The recorded video of the full authority is not considered the official record of that meeting. The official record is the full authority meeting shall consist solely of the minutes approved by the full authority. So now I know that we have a roll call to do. So Elizabeth, I'll let you go ahead and do that.
Kravitz?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Bill Mackey?
Here.
Elizabeth Pelosa will be joining us shortly, and Allison Warwick.
Here.
So we have
Okay.
4 out of 5 members currently.
Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Hearing and seeing none, we're now going to move into our open session. And the first thing that we have here is plan input and review service fees. So I will let you go ahead with that whenever you're ready, Elizabeth.
Thank you. So the minister's fee class policy was released with the Section 2 regulations that we talked about at the last full authority meeting. And it does instruct CAs to have a fee policy in place by January 1st, 2023. What we wanted to do today is kind of have a comprehensive discussion about how our planning fees have worked since about 1997. And those plan input and review services is currently funded through a lump sum special benefiting levy. And in 2022, it was roughly $60,000 that's dedicated to that program area. The Section 28 regulation program, which works closely with that plan input and review in that it's one full-time position working both of those programs. The Section 28 program charges fees based on a user pay principle. So as applications are submitted, there's a fee attached to that the applicant fees pays. And that helps to offset the levy. This arrangement is fairly unique in the province. Many CAs collect a levy for this program area, but we have set it up, KCCA set it up as a special benefiting levy way back in 1999 after there was significant provincial program cuts. And staff at the time were reluctant to raise fees simply because they would have to be raised too high for the applicant. It would be overly burdensome to the applicant to raise fees high enough to sustain the program. And a lump sum payment, a portion based on benefit to member municipalities, was seen as favorable at the time. The services are mandatory, so they can be supported by a levy, and it's able to manage the cost recovery, support a comprehensive, stable program rather than revenue peaking and falling based on the applications received. It avoids a lot of administrative costs as well, simply because a lot of other CAs, they will, the municipality collects the fees and then gives it back to the CA. So there's a lot of paperwork back and forth. Sorry, I'm just going to admit Elizabeth. And the way that KCCA has it set up by a special benefiting levy, it fairly distributes the cost to the municipalities. So if a municipality is seeing increased plan input and review, their apportionment is higher than another municipality that's not seeing a lot of that service level. And that apportionment can be adjusted as necessary. And what I mentioned earlier is in 2022, that special benefiting levy for plan input was roughly 60,000. Eligible costs for that plan input and review covers everything off from staff salary, training and overhead, an appropriate percentage of salary and overhead for staff and consultants, compliance cost, office space, legal expenses, and the maintenance and development of public resources. So all of those costs are associated with that. As I mentioned, the Section 28 regulations, it follows a user pay principle. So every application that Joe receives, there's a fee associated with that and based on the complexity of the application received. Currently, the makeup of that program, we're getting about 80% from the levy and 20% user pay. So again, at this time, to go to a complete user pay system would be unreasonable. There's certain efficiencies would be lost. It would be cost prohibitive for the applicants to reverse that to a user pay principle. So moving forward, what staff are requesting of the board is that we keep with that plan input review special benefiting levy and just look at recouping costs with the Section 28 through a user pay principle. This is a key thing that we need board support on because we need to build that fee policy and clearly outline to the public how that system is working and how those fees are being developed so that we're transparent in how we're operating things. So pause right now just to see if there's any questions from the members on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Grant. Yep.
Elizabeth, have you had any pushback from any of the municipalities on this in the past? I've never heard anything from my staff about it.
No, we've never had, to my knowledge, certainly in my time, so the past 15 years, there's never been a question about how we've set up this system locally.
Then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, any other questions? Hearing and seeing none. So whenever you're ready, Elizabeth.
So the motion that we have before you in terms of this report is that the executive support the existing lump sum funding model for a special benefiting levy for plan input review services required under the Conservation Authorities Act.
Okay, any other more comments before we look at this recommendation? I mean, I know ourselves, same as Grant, we've never had a problem with it. And to me, it makes more sense because you can budget on the amount as opposed to waiting for people to come in and use the service. So, you know, I would support this. So we have it on the table here that the executive committee supports the existing lump sum funding model through benefiting special levy for plan. The screen, I gotta take the screen down because it's hiding the words here. Input and review services required under the Conservation Authorities Act. So everyone want to make a mover? Grant, so moved. Seconded.
Bill?
Bill, thank you. All in favor, and if you want to do the roll call, Elizabeth, that would be great.
Sure. Kravitz?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Pelosa?
Yes.
Warwick?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Okay, great. And then we're moving on now to Kettle Creek fee policy and fee schedules.
Sure. So the first report kind of fed into the second report. It's a continuation. We basically have drafted up fee policy and the associated fee schedules based on the guidance that's provided by that minister's class policy that stipulates we need a policy in place by January 1st, 2023. The fee class policy sets out that we need a policy that lists our programs and services for which fees apply. We need to detail any administration fees in a transparent and accountable way. We need to give account for public notification and outline the frequency of the review. We need a procedure for reconsideration of fees, and the fees should be premised on a user pay principle. So Betsy is with me in terms of coming up with the policy with input from Joe as well. And I'm just going to go through the major components of that, the fee policy that we're providing. The process in terms of setting fees, we would look at neighboring CAs as well as other stakeholders and the fees that they have in place, any legislative requirements. We're not to exceed cost of delivery, except in some circumstances like the conservation areas. Refunds may carry administrative fee, and we've set out that the fees and the policy would be reviewed annually and approved by the board. There are certain exceptions, and those are outlined within each area of the policy. So the authority may waive fees as approved in the policy or on a case-by-case basis. The board of directors may approve an exemption, and there's specific cases outlined in the policy. Schedule 1 deals with the Section 28 regulations, and as you just considered, we would be keeping the planning fees as a special benefiting levy, so there's no specific fee schedule for them, but there is a fee schedule for the Section 28 fees. Those would be reviewed annually, and again, they're set based on workload, consultation, the number of applications that we get in a year, as well as what neighboring CAs are setting for their fees as well. We also explained within that section professional services fees that may be required from time to time and how those would be applied to the applicant as well. Schedule 2 deals with conservation area fees. So these are basically our campground schedules. Normally you would have seen these fees set out in the seasonal camper applications that we review every November. Again, in setting these fees, we're looking at things like what type of revenue we want to generate to support the other program areas of the authority, what neighboring CAs are setting out as their fees, and a general market analysis. We would permit people with disabilities to have a support person enter the campgrounds and conservation areas at no charge. And there are other exceptions that we've had in the past the board has approved, such as free day passes to nature groups, as long as they're showing proof that they're a member of those groups. Those are things like the St. Thomas Field Naps or Nature London. Schedule 3 and 4 outline the fees associated with what we're calling watershed program services. So these are tree planting, and again, those tree planting fees are balancing base funding with third-party support, such as our contracts with OPG, but also customer buy-in. And that balance that we look for between those 3 funding sources gives that program area a certain amount of sustainability moving forward. The invasive species management fees, those are full cost recovery, so they take into account staff time, materials, as well as travel. We did at this time add an administration schedule as well. That's Schedule 4. Right now, it's very minimal. It sets out, a general FOI request as well as an NSF check, what we would charge if we got an NSF check. This November, we'll look at that schedule in more detail. Some other CAs are charging things like for mapping requests or photocopying, other administrative costs like that. Staff need more time in terms of evaluating that and what fees, if any, we would introduce moving forward. So the fee reconsideration and refund sections, those simply outline if the public can request an administrative review. They can request that if they feel a fee has been charged and contrary to the schedule. So their first point of reconsideration would be to write to me and ask for a reconsideration. If the authority deemed that we could order them to pay the fee, we could vary the fee, or we could waive the fee. If any of those were to apply, we would charge a 10% administration fee, only if they had asked for administrative review. And then there's other areas such as the campgrounds that have their own refund policies in place, and we would apply those to those fees. So in general, the fee policy that we presented to you in draft today follows both the minister's fee policy, but as well closely aligns to guides that Conservation Ontario has put out in the past. And in many ways just puts in writing what we have been following based on other board motions or policies in the other departments, such as the conservation areas. This is simply bringing them all together under one document that can be posted on the website and updated regularly at the full authority meeting. So today what we're asking is just for feedback from the executive committee on this, and what we would do is present it for consideration and approval of the full board at the June 15th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Allison, Dennis.
Yep, go ahead.
Just the one thing on the schedule to the campsites, the hydro rates, has that been reviewed and looked at on a regular basis or up to date? Just wondering the charge for the hydro.
Yeah, I can answer that, Dennis. So it is reviewed annually. The calculation that we agreed upon when we introduced the hydro rates, we're currently basing it on the prior year's total usage divided by the cost, and we come up with an average. So every year we look at the prior year's usage and we come up with the average cost. So every year that changes. Every year it's reviewed. Surprisingly enough, since we adopted the hydro meters, the rate has stayed the same. The calculations resulted in the same result because there is tiered pricing in St. Thomas. So that's why we calculate out all of our expenses minus taxes, and we can come up with an average use per kilowatt hour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Any other comments about the policy? Oh, sorry, Bill. Yep, go ahead.
Just a quick question through you, Madam Chair. What environmental groups would we normally give the free admission to that's come through our gates and our lands there?
So Bill, typically it would be the field naturalists in St. Thomas, and Nature London members have historically done that as well. So they would get free permits. But what we ask is they just show every year, annually, they need to show that they're a valid member of those groups, and then we would issue them a complimentary pass.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I can't see everybody on the screen at the moment, so if there is, just speak up. If not, we do have a recommendation. Somebody just speak up, or is that just a noise? Yep. All right, that the executive committee recommend the draft fee policy presented at the June 15th full authority meeting for consideration.
Elizabeth will move.
Okay, thank you. Seconder?
Kravitz, second.
Okay, and Elizabeth, if you're ready, you can do a roll call. Or
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Loza,
Yes.
Warwick,
yes.
and that motion passes.
Okay, great, thank you. And now moving on to the joint planning service agreement.
Thank you. I'll start with the presentation, but Joe may step in at a certain point with questions from the members. We've had some discussions with Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority about pursuing a planning service agreement with Southwold. And really this has arisen about from a request from Southwold to have CAs involved in their natural heritage reviews. The agreement that Lower Thames Valley is proposing is actually combining both natural hazard reviews as a category 1 mandated program and the natural heritage review, which is a category 2 program and services. As a category 1, the planning review natural hazards, it doesn't require an agreement be in place with our member municipalities to offer that service because it's mandatory. But it is seen both as CO from Conservation Ontario as a best management practice to have an agreement in place. Currently, Kettle Creek does not have these types of agreements in place with any member municipality. And Southold is the only one requesting natural heritage services at this time. Years ago, we did do natural heritage services, but we stepped back from that in the board directed staff not to pursue that unless there was an agreement in place with their member municipalities. So overall, Kettle Creek staff recommend that natural heritage services are probably better coordinated through the county, and we've had various discussions with the county over the last couple of years in terms of establishing that. And at this time, we're recommending concentrating on establishing the agreements that are required as part of the CA Act review with our member municipalities to get those in place for January 2024. And what I'm concerned about is if we go out with these various different agreements, it will confuse the member municipalities in terms of what is required because of the CA Act review and what is being considered for best management practices. So just to explain this a little bit further, in terms of best management practices, CO came out a couple of years ago with basically a service delivery checklist, and they were really pushing for high service areas, so CAs with a lot of volume of planning services to adopt these best management practices. KCCA decided we're a small growth CA, but we decided as best we could to implement these best management practices moving forward. And pretty much the whole list we have been able to click off. So we have plan review and regulation approval policies and guidelines. Those are implemented and available on our website. We have a complete application requirements. Those are implemented and on our website. The fee schedule. We've had a fee schedule, but now we're moving towards a comprehensive minister's fee policy in compliance with the minister's fee program. And the client service standards commitment we've also implemented. The online screening maps, we budgeted for that this year in our beginning implementation, hopefully in the next couple of months. And we annually report on our review timelines. So the only thing that we are missing there is these municipal MOUs or technical service agreements. And again, they are not required, it's simply a best management practice. So Southold has requested natural heritage review, and again, Lower Thames is looking at an agreement that both combines the natural hazard review and the natural heritage review into one agreement. But KCCA feels that to undertake natural heritage just for one member municipality, the economy of scales isn't there. Staff are already working full out. And to do that for one member municipality, we would like to assist. But at this time, it's, again, the economies of scales isn't there. And we do fear that it's confusing things for our member municipalities in terms of what's required, in terms of mandatory agreements and what's seen as a best management approach. So what we're recommending today is that we decline the offer to participate in this joint service agreement with Lower Towns for planning and natural heritage services with the Township of Southold at this time, but would continue to advocate that this be something that the Elgin County take on in terms of setting up comprehensive natural heritage review across the county.
Okay. All right. So any questions, comments? Yeah, Grant, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a problem with this. Just more confusion on my part than anything. Obviously, our CEO Lisa is off on maternity leave, so I can't ask her questions. With regards to who's doing it for the other municipalities right now, are they getting private contractors to do it, or consultants, or because the county, we haven't got very far with it either. The county, it's planning right now is a bit of a turmoil level. So I don't know if Central Elgin, what do you guys do?
can answer that, Chair Warwick, on behalf of yourself. Currently, it's being conducted, my understanding is with the municipal staff. That they're not having the second party reviewing them. So under the provincial policy statement, the municipal is responsible for approval of consideration of all the policies. My understanding, the County of Elgin historically did issue an RFP for third-party services to assist in reviewing EISs. They did retain a consultant, but only was going to be used if there was conflict or issues identified at the municipal or CA level. When they did that original RFP, it's my understanding they never used the services of the third party. As kind of noted in the advanced package, we have had subsequent discussions with the county regarding a collaborative CA agreement where the CAs can provide that assistance across the region. It's our understanding that the county directed staff to come back with an options assessment to look at benefits between using the CA, hiring in-house, or going to or maintaining the third-party review process. Right now, we don't know when that options assessment report will go back to the county for consideration. But what we know right now is in our understanding that it's just being conducted at the staff level within the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, I should clarify, that's within the County of Elgin jurisdiction. Within the Middlesex and City of London, those are municipalities that do have in-house experts. They have ecologists and biologists that are staff employees, and it's being conducted by the staff at those in the Middlesex London jurisdiction.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Dennis, so should we possibly submit this report, forward it to the County of Elgin and ask for the county to look further into this, because that would include Catfish Creek and the other conservation authorities at the same time, and all of Elgin County's planning, rather than taking this on in-house and trying to partner with Lower Thames?
So if I can, Dennis, so that is the case. The county has considered it. But then again, they directed staff to come back with a greater review of assessments. But as we know right now, the county staff, they have a staffing issue right now where the county's relying on a third-party planning consultant to assist them until they can fill their gap of their planning manager. So I think that's the area where the prior planning manager for the County of Elgin was proactively pursuing this as part of the County of Elgin official plan update. Right now, because of that staff vacancy is the unknown, but we don't know when the county will pick that up, but they are considering it, and they directed staff to bring that report back at the county level.
So I agree with the recommendation, and at this time we decline. So I'd be happy to move this recommendation.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we know how, like, do we have a timeline of any sorts about when counties of Elgin's going to get sorted out? Like, have they got somebody that they're looking at, or do we know guys that are from Elgin? What's going on?
No, it's
Yeah, Grant?
right now, it's we don't have a senior planner, we don't have a junior planner, we don't have any planners, so it's been left in Brian Nima, our engineer's hands for now, and Julie's kind of watching too, so it's a bit of a mess right now until we find somebody, and there is nobody out there right now.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Okay, so we've got a mover. Seconder is Bill, or a comment?
Well, both. I think it's important that we concentrate on the mandatory agreements at this time. So I would like to second this one.
Okay, all right. So Elizabeth, I guess if you're ready, we can call the vote.
Pitts,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
Mackey,
Yes.
Pelosi,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
All right, so looking at the agenda, our next thing is a closed session. So we won't be recording that, right, Elizabeth? And
Correct.
yeah, and then we're just going to give everybody a few minutes to go and get their agenda sorted out. get
Can
back
we
in.
can we have a motion to go into closed while we're still recording?
I think that's a good idea. So looking at Grant moved it, seconded by Elizabeth, and all in favor? I think we're good on that one, Elizabeth. We don't need to do a roll call. Okay, so moved. And do you want me to say the reason that we're going into closed on camera?
Sure.
Okay, so the reason that we're going into closed is to review a personnel matter that is confidential. And that's the reason. I don't have anything in front of me here.